The entire world is tracking the war in Ukraine. They see tragedy, they see needless violence, but not China. China looks at Ukraine and it sees opportunity. Their latest strategy is this: compare the Quad to NATO. Let me quote what Chinese officials are saying. Going against the trend to pursue the Indo-Pacific strategy, provoke trouble, put together closed and exclusive small circles or groups, and get the region off course toward fragmentation and bloc-based division is as dangerous as the NATO strategy of eastward expansion in Europe. Now, two things to note here. Number one, who made this comparison? Vice Foreign Minister Li Yucheng. He's a rising star in China. Earlier, he served as China's envoy to India, and rumor is he could be the next foreign minister of his country. Important point number two, how does this comparison help China? To answer that, we must look at Beijing's reaction to the war in Ukraine. China does not blame Putin for this war. It blames NATO's expansionism. Listen to this.
The key to solving the Ukraine crisis lies in the hands of the United States and NATO. We hope that the United States and NATO, as the culprits of the crisis, can reflect on their roles in the Ukraine crisis, take up their due responsibilities, and make practical actions to ease the situation and solve the problem in order to bring an early resolution to the conflict in Ukraine.
Let me recap China's logic for you. NATO expanded, Russia felt threatened, so Putin was justified in waging this war. That is how Beijing sees it. Remember, they have not condemned the invasion yet. Neither have they actually called it an invasion. So China's objective is quite clear. Step one, normalize what Putin is doing in Ukraine. And step two, use that template in the Indo-Pacific. That's where the Quad comes in. China needs an excuse for its expansionism in the Indo-Pacific. Putin has given them that excuse. So-called security concerns, that is the excuse. And who is causing those concerns? According to China, the Quad. Beijing says the Quad is doing in the Indo-Pacific what NATO is doing in Europe. And frankly, it does not make any sense. The Quad and NATO could not be more different. NATO is a military alliance. They have a collective security promise. Quad is anything but a military alliance. They talk about climate change, supply chains, vaccines, basically anything but defense. NATO also has clarity on its rival. During the Cold War, it was the Soviet Union. Now it is Russia. The Quad, on the other hand, is yet to even name China. As the Quad leaders keep saying, the Quad is not against anyone, it is for something. And this position has already created two political camps. One camp is happy with the status quo. They prefer ambiguity, basically chip away at China's economic power. The second camp is more radical. They want the Quad to name China, to undertake more military cooperation. Well, right or wrong, the Quad is stuck with the status quo. Their focus is firmly on the economy. Can't say the same about China, though. They're busy militarizing islands in the South China Sea. I'm talking about this cluster, Spratly Islands. It is a real estate claimed by China, the Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Brunei. Many claimants, China is converting parts of this cluster into military bases. These three islands, to be precise: Mischief Reef, Subi Reef, and Fiery Cross. All three have been heavily militarized. We're talking about anti-ship guns, anti-aircraft missiles, jamming equipment, radar systems, hangars, runways, basically full-fledged military bases. According to the Pentagon, the construction work is done. These islands can now serve as forward bases. They can shoot down jets. They can deploy bombers. In simple words, they extend China's sphere of influence. Is any of this legal? Of course it's not. But neither is Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which brings us back to the idea of normalizing wars. On Friday, Joe Biden warned against this. He spoke to Chinese President Xi Jinping, and Biden laid out two red lines. A, no military help for Russia. And B, don't use the Ukraine war to attack Taiwan. Now, on the second demand, on Taiwan, you can imagine the response. Conquering Taiwan is China's ultimate dream. There is no way Xi Jinping abandons it. On the first demand, the response was interesting. China says it is not arming Russia for now, but they've refused to rule out the possibility in the future. Now, all of this puts Biden in a tough spot. If he keeps pushing China, Xi Jinping may rethink his non-interference. If he cools off, it's advantage China in the Indo-Pacific. Either way, Beijing is playing the long game here. They're using Ukraine to establish a precedent. They're turning the Quad into a Pacific war machine. At the same time, they're making bases in the South China Sea. In Putin, The world faces a mercurial leader, mostly unpredictable. In Xi Jinping, the world faces a more calculated leader, different in style, but equally dangerous. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.